Well, San Francisco's roster has undergone some major changes this offseason, including trading Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders. Perhaps the biggest obstacle they're going to have to overcome this offseason is moving off Dre Greenlaw. He was one of the better players on the defensive side of the ball, and when he was out there, he brought an unprecedented amount of energy. But while I do love him as a player, I do think San Francisco, specifically John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, have been preparing his replacements in Dee Winters and Tatum Bethune. When you look at Dee Winters coming out of the 2023 NFL Draft, for instance, John Lynch directly compared him to Dre Greenlaw, and when you watch his NFL film, it's pretty hard to disagree with him. Not only does he trigger aggressively in the run game, he can flow sideline to sideline, as well as being able to cover your best tight ends. Surprisingly, he's also a better athlete than Greenlaw. He comes in at 5'11", weighing 227 pounds, and ran his 40-yard dash in 4.49 seconds, and had a blistering fast 10-yard split of 1.56 seconds. All of that is to say, on paper, Dee Winters appears like the perfect linebacker for Robert Saleh's wide 9 defense. On first and second down, for instance, he can fill in those holes left behind by the defensive line, and then on third down, he can cover your best tight end or even a running back. My favorite part about Winters, though, is you saw a noticeable improvement from his game from year 1 to year 2. So head into year 3, I believe he could really replace a player like Dre Greenlaw. But to really examine the player that he is, we need to dive a little bit deeper into his film. Initially, we're going to be looking at him in coverage because he's an excellent coverage linebacker. According to PFF, he was the 6th highest graded coverage linebacker across the entire NFL last season. Obviously, it helps how athletic he is, but I think what really sets him apart in coverage is how well he sees the field and understands the weaknesses in his zone coverage and then adjusts accordingly. Here going against the Seattle Seahawks, for instance, San Francisco is running cover 3. So Winters on this play has hooked to flat, but because he is able to identify the play action concept ran by the Seattle Seahawks, with this wide receiver clearing out his cornerback, he knows his defense is going to have a weakness right where DK Metcalf is running. So he drops back, is able to jump and break up this pass. This would be a great play for a defensive back, let alone a linebacker. In a similar way on this play, San Francisco is running zone coverage, and Dee Winters is reading it to perfection. He sees this wide receiver coming on the crosser route, so he breaks off of this tight end and is able to once again go up there, break up this pass, and not draw the PI. And now essentially manned up on this running back, I want to pay attention to his technique. First, he disrupts his route with a double-handed press technique, and then, with the quarterback attempting to target him, he does a great job breaking on this ball and nearly picking it off. And I love that about Winters. Every time he's able to attack the ball in the air, he's trying to. Here against the Bears, for instance, in zone coverage, he's able to read Williams' eyes, then breaks on the pass, nearly getting the pick on this play. An aspect of his pass coverage that really reminds me of Greenlaw's is his ability to break out hard to these flat routes. Here with Patrick Mahomes targeting this running back, for instance, he gets there in a hurry, and this running back is only able to pick up a couple yards. I'll take that all day. In a similar way here going against the Packers, Winters is reading Jordan Love's eyes, sees him targeting this tight end, and then makes a great open field tackle. If he's able to keep this up for a whole entire season, I could see him actually having a Pro Bowl season next to a player like Fred Warner. I also don't think a lot of people mention how great he is at blowing up screens. Here going against the Cardinals, for instance, you can see how quickly he's able to identify the screen to this tight end, and then because of how athletic he is, he's able to run by this less athletic offensive lineman, blowing up this play. Another reason I believe Dee Winters might be a perfect replacement for a player like Dre Greenlaw is he's a tone setter. Here going against the Cardinals, for instance, he does a great job of initially shutting down this wide receiver's route, and then with this tight end catching on Talanoa Hufanga, he breaks off his man and absolutely demolishes this tight end coming over the middle. I love the way he hits. Now moving into Winters against the run, he does an excellent job of identifying the gap in the offensive line and then shooting it. Here against the Bears, for instance, as soon as he sees this back taken off to the left side and sees this gap opening, he shoots it, gets by this offensive lineman, and tackles his back for no gain. Winters' ability to quickly recognize the offensive play makes him actually play quicker than his 4.49 40. Here going against the Cardinals, for instance, almost immediately he recognizes this run play by the Cardinals, so he shoots the open gap once again in the offensive line and takes it away from this back, ultimately tackling him once again for no gain. I also like Winters' ability to scrape with running backs on outside runs and then shoot the gap and make it to the line of scrimmage before them. Here going against the Patriots, for instance, he scrapes to the side, sees the hole forming in the offensive line, shoots it, and then brings down this back for no gain. Maybe my favorite part about Winters in his run defense though is his ability to play sideline to sideline. Here going against the Miami Dolphins, for instance, he first identifies his toss to this running back, then he's able to take on this offensive lineman with one of his arms, and because of his athleticism, he's able to track down this back and ultimately tackles him for pretty minimal gain on this play. I also think Winters does an excellent job of routinely avoiding offensive linemen and tight ends blocks if he doesn't have to get engaged. Here going against this offensive lineman, for instance, you can see how he shoots by him and then tackles this back. In a similar way here on this play, this tight end is attempting to hook block Winters so he can't attack this running back. But because Winters does a great job of dipping underneath his block, he's able to find his way into the backfield and absolutely blows up this play. Maybe the reason I'm most excited about Winters heading into year 3 is not only the opportunity he has ahead of him, but because of the coaching he'll receive from Robert Saleh. Saleh's routinely been able to get the absolute most out of linebackers, and with Winters, I expect more of the same. So heading into year 3, I think Winters could be a Pro Bowl linebacker. The only thing that will hold him back, in my opinion, will be injuries. Last year he was hampered, and he just hasn't been able to show he's a healthy linebacker for a full NFL season. But if he's able to do that, you might see another type of linebacker duo like Fred Warner and Greenlaw used to have. Another linebacker that will play a vital role in replacing Dre Greenlaw is Tatum Bethune, the second-year linebacker out of Florida State. He should be in competition for the second and third linebacker job, and on this play, you can see why San Francisco absolutely loves him. Going against the Cardinals, he takes his read step, sees the gap in the offensive line forming, shoots it almost instantly, and then brings down this back for no gain. And even though his 40-yard dash is similar to Dre Greenlaw's, running it in 4.75 seconds, he can play sideline to sideline. Here, for instance, he's able to track down this back, and because he doesn't give up on this play, he helps make the tackle. Another thing Bethune does a nice job of is shedding offensive linemen's blocks. On this play, for example, he does an excellent job of shedding this offensive lineman's block, and then once in the backfield, it takes this back down for a pretty minimal gain. So even though San Francisco did lose a major part to their defense this offseason, losing Dre Greenlaw to the Denver Broncos, I think they have a player in Dee Winters who could replace him really nicely. I mean, his athletic profile is better, and if he can just remain healthy, I think he could end up being a Pro Bowl linebacker. And when you look at a player like Tatum Bethune, he did pretty good for a rookie linebacker selected in the 7th round. And with the coaching of Robert Saleh, he could end up being their third linebacker heading into the season. But ultimately, these are just my thoughts on Dee Winters and Tatum Bethune, and I'd like to hear your thoughts down below and how they could potentially replace Dre Greenlaw. It would also mean a ton to me if you could like and subscribe. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.